refusing to be comforted because they are no more. That's a bad man. After Herod died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go to the land of Israel, for those who were trying to take the child's life are dead." See, here's another thing. It is plural. It isn't just King Herod, it's them. It's they, the ones that are trying to get to Christ and destroy him. So others had picked up the mantra of what was Herod's diabolical plan. So he got up, took the child and his mother, and went to the land of Israel. But when he heard that Archelaus was reigning in Judea in place of his father Herod, he was afraid to go there. Having been warned in a dream, he withdrew to the district of Galilee, and he went and lived in a town called Nazareth. So was fulfilled what was said through the prophets: he will be a Nazarene. There is so much. In fact, we look in hindsight, but at the time, so many Jews knew the Old Testament, as we call it, and in fact, how they learned it, a lot of them learned it verbatim. In fact, they could say it back without having to read it. And so you would think, with all, there's like 300 plus references in the Old Testament to Christ coming, you know. And it's kind of like there ought to be a deal there at the end that says, hey guys, get a clue, because I've given you clues. But like I said, it's just so funny to me that the pagans are the ones that are taking the scripture and taking it to heart that that's the truth, and they're out to try to find him by that. You know, I don't know if Herod had a horrible death. In fact, he was afraid that no one would come to his funeral and mourn for him, which is not, you know, crazy, because he was ridiculously bad. So what he did was he went out and he killed some other people so that there would be mourning in Israel. Not necessarily for him, but at least he got mourning, you know, at the time of his death. And his death was not, you know, he didn't just go to sleep and not wake up. They said he had worms, that it had ravaged his body, and breath so foul that they couldn't even hardly be around him. You know, this was really before Tic Tacs and stuff. But he just had, a horrible death, and really, one could say, a deserved death for such a guy. But as we have read these things in Matthew chapter 2, we see where the prophets had prophesied this, and it came true. And they prophesied this, and it came true. But the very ones that should have seen, you know, all along, Israel's looking for the Messiah. We want the Messiah. God says he's going to give us the Messiah. Jesus comes, the Messiah. Well, they just ignore that. And in fact, today, those Jews that aren't Messianic, yes, thank you. The ones that aren't Messianic, the other Jews that are Orthodox Jews, they're still looking for Christ. They do not recognize that Christ has already come. So the ultimate killer of Christmas was Herod's attempt, but he was thwarted by God's plan. You know, evil, and just kind of fleshing it out for today, evil can come in so many ways, in so many packages, and attempt to attack us But God's bigger than that. It doesn't mean we won't have to go through some turmoil, because he suffered, the scripture says we'll suffer, and yet in that suffering we have the joy of Jesus Christ. Not happiness. Happy and joy are kind of two distinct things. Sometimes Jim's happy about stuff, sometimes he's not happy about stuff. But to carry the joy of Christ in our heart, that's forever and ongoing. That's not, and this is so key, it's not due to circumstances. The world lives according to circumstances. Things going good, 5 by 5, they're okay with everything. But something goes wrong, and they just don't have anything to fall on in that way. So, anyway, we see all these things about Jesus. Maybe kind of short, I don't know. But we're going to end with that. Just remember next week is going to be kind of, and it's only because Christmas fell, and it was you guys' decision that since Christmas Eve is on a Sunday and it's in the morning, or whatever I'm trying to say, we're going to combine both services so we don't come back again then that night. But that's just this year, because that's the way it fell. We're not doing away with Christmas Eve services. I love Christmas Eve services. I think they're so meaningful for us going into that Christmas day to spend the evening before worshiping Him. So, I know we talked about some on the prayer list, and Christmas is a time that's difficult for some people. And a lot of times it's because we have such high expectations. This is what Christmas is supposed to look like. This is what family with Christmas is supposed to look like. Well, it isn't always that way. And, thanks be to God if it is, where it's a family joining together, worshiping and caring for God and caring for each other. But sometimes people are lonely and they're on their own. Suicides go way up during this time because, people are expecting things and maybe they don't have anybody there, or somebody's fallen down in support for them. I would just say this: during this coming week, we all, and me, I'm in that boat, we all need to see people that we come in contact with and reach out to them. I don't mean, get down and dirty with the personal things, but if you see somebody that's obviously struggling, just take time to listen to them. Take time to let them say what's going on in their heart, because we have the one that's joy for all people. And so we need to share that. Let God focus our eyes on somebody or somebodies we may run into this week. Because I've said it before, and I know it to be true. It seems like even the hardest heart is soft during this time. There's just something about Christmas. Yeah, you got the bah humbugs and that, but a lot of people, they soften their hearts during this time, and it allows us to speak to them and reach out to them. It's a good excuse, I guess, if you will. So let's make that our game plan for this week. Troy, come and we'll have a hymn of invitation, and if anybody, the Lord's spoke to your heart, then you can answer that call.